Hey, what's up, you YouTube bums? Thanks so much for joining on and popping into our live stream. If you're here on a replay or watching this again later, again, we really appreciate you coming by. We're going to talk today a little bit about rental property, which personally I have a lot of experience with. So let me tell you a little bit about, first of all, me and who I am if you don't already know me. My name's Kevin. I'm the property prince. I'm here as well, half today of Two Guys Take on Real Estate. And we really love to share all of our experience that we have developed over about 12 years, 13 years now. I don't know. I always say it feels like 35 because we did not know what we were doing. And when we got into real estate, we started by buying property, fixing it up, and then renting it out. And well, that it seems like an awesome idea, but when you don't know what you're doing, it can be a lot of struggle. So today, we're going to share some of that with you. We're going to discuss some of that kind of stuff with you. And our topic that I wanted to talk about today, and I posted a link as well, is about space heaters in rental units, obviously causing fires. Now, I say obviously because I have a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. And the reason I decided I should probably pop on live and hang out with you clowns is because you know what? Something that's common sense to someone might not be common sense to someone else. Common sense, as it turns out, isn't all that common. So space heaters in rental apartments, personally, I think is a horrible idea. You should not allow that. So if you are going to get into the world of rental property, you're going to buy property, you're going to fix it up, you're going to put tenants into a property. I would say you should strictly prohibit the ability for your tenant to have a space heater or any kind of supplemental heating. I know people don't always agree with that kind of thing 100%. So I love it when people jump in and give me comments. So folks, as you're joining in, or if you're watching this later on a replay, take a second, drop a comment. But while you're clicking buttons on your phone or on your computer, take a second and click the subscribe button and the like button. The more you do that, the more we'll help our channel grow. But guys, I'm going to tell you right now, don't trust your tenants to use a space heater properly. Now, space heaters themselves, not that dangerous. I think we can all agree. Most of us have used a space heater at one point or another, had one in their homes. You didn't die because you're here watching this video, right? So I think we can agree that space heaters themselves aren't that necessarily that dangerous. I think when they're in the hands of someone they shouldn't be in the hands of, they can become a very dangerous thing. I think the tenants will misuse them. So I put the blame not on the manufacturer of the space heater, Honeywell. And when there's a fire, you shouldn't be suing the space heater company. 90% of the time, it's because the person using it screwed up. Hey, what's up, Trod? Thanks for popping on and saying hello. We're gonna have a few minutes of me being live here today on this. It's Saturday night. I'm gonna go out and enjoy myself this evening, and I hope you guys are as well out there in the world of YouTube, learning about real estate, but also balancing that off with some fun in your life too, because this can get very, very consuming. So let's talk a little bit more though right now about space heaters being trusted in the hands of your tenants in your properties. Why? Why would I be worried about that? I mean, right? They're pretty safe. I just said that a second ago. I'm going to tell you really right now for sure. Your tenants will do some stupid stuff with them, and that might just put them and their family at risk. If that's what you're worried about, they're making that decision. They're putting themselves at risk. I think I can kind of get some understanding with that. If you're okay with it being unsafe and using something unsafely, and it only affects you, what the hell does somebody else care, right? It doesn't just affect them, and it doesn't just put them at risk. So that's a huge thing that I would really want to point out to a lot of people. So if and when there's an issue and they cause a fire as a result of supplemental heating or heating with a space heater instead of the home's heating system, what's going to end up happening is people are going to respond to put out that fire. You're immediately putting first responders at risk. You're potentially doing this in a multifamily house. Now you're putting other families at risk. I've had experience with this where I've had tenants set a house on fire, happened more than once. I know I've had colleagues and acquaintances in the world of real estate that have had the same kind of situation. And I will tell you what else ends up happening is people get displaced. They may not die, but it is a huge disruption to their life. And again, all because somebody couldn't be trusted using something that, you have to have a little bit of consideration for. Do you do an addendum to the lease agreement about space heaters? Absolutely. It should be a standard clause in your lease saying you have a bunch of prohibited items. There could be a whole bunch of things. You shouldn't probably be allowing pools, it might help in the event of a fire. The pool's right there to put the fire out. But no, seriously, maybe don't allow pools. Why? because your tenant might do a great job of supervising, their family and their household around that pool, but they're not watching it all the time. They turn their back, and a neighbor, a member of the neighboring household or a neighbor down the street walks right into the property, walks into the pool, and never makes it out. And I mean, there's a reason they put drowning labels on kiddie pools that contain 2-3 inches of water. I know it sounds ridiculous, but they're there for a reason. So it's a liability thing. I wouldn't allow pools. There's a whole bunch of other prohibited items, things you should list, space heaters being one of them. And again, it's not because space heaters themselves are incredibly dangerous. It's because you're going to have a tenant that's going to do a bonehead thing with it, and you're going to get stuck dealing with a lot of problems. You're going to be dealing with the fact that you're going to have other tenants displaced, maybe dying or injured as a result of it. First responders injured or dying. All these kind of things are going to happen because somebody doesn't understand you can't put a space heater right next to curtains. I got curtains hanging right here, right? I've watched this happen. I've seen these things in apartments where a space heater is right next to the window, right next to a window covering. A lot of our tenants, they don't have curtains. They're opening the window at the top. They're shoving trash bags, or they're shoving, beach blankets and beach towels in there, and they're closing the window in it to keep the thing. I mean, that's how they make curtains. I mean, for a lot of people, and they're going to put a space heater right there at the base of that because they feel that the window is drafty. Why is the window drafty? Because it's half open at the top. Because you're using it to wedge and hold a towel in it or whatever. So of course your window's drafty. So they put a space heater next to it, and then they blame the landlord for the drafty window, and that's why we needed to use space heater. Oh my gosh, my house burned down. I almost died in a fire because I had to do something because of your drafty windows. I mean, it's amazing, but these things will end up coming back to you as the landlord and the owner of the property. Don't get, why in the world would you want to let somebody who's got, just makes a bad decision and then somehow uses some mental gymnastics to make a series of ignorance, misunderstandings of how to use an apartment, bad choices and decisions on how to use a space heater, and then mental gymnastics their way to making it be your fault that it happened. So I've seen people putting them right near their bed. Again, they want to be warm at night. They put it near their bed. Maybe their bedroom is cold. They put it in their kid's room next to their kid's bed. And the blankets from the bed will literally be on or touching or right next to the space heater. Not to mention the other stuff, right? These things get knocked over. I know a lot of these devices, space heaters, they'll have a fail-safe or a tip sensor or switch or something like that that'll prevent it. It'll shut off if they get tipped over. I've seen people tamper with safety devices. I've seen it all the time. I've seen people tamper with fuse panels, circuit panels, wedging them open so they don't trip. Crazy what I've seen in the world of real estate, right? And I want to share this kind of stuff with you because I've seen landlords get sued and try to be held responsible somehow, some way for horrible tenant decisions that led to death or injury or just massive inconveniences. So Trod, definitely a huge point. Make sure that stuff's in your lease. That'll help protect you when somebody makes a bad decision at your property and causes harm or damages. It's not going to be fully protect you. I mean, they'll still go past that and they'll say, listen, you knew I had a space heater. You've been in my apartment 3 times last month doing maintenance, and you saw it right out in the open. I had space heaters. If you had a problem with it, you had the responsibility to say something, to send me notice. Why didn't you stop me from using these space heaters or having and being in possession of these space heaters if they were such a lease provision, if they were a prohibited item? They'll literally say, I was flagrantly breaking the rule in front of you and you did nothing to enforce the rule, so you're at fault. They will find any stupid way to sue you. It's ridiculous. And again, maybe this is going to be different in your state than it is in my state. I have a lot of experience in a state like Massachusetts, which we all know, those kind of states like New York and California, they're ridiculously leaning. And not leaning, it's just preposterously, in one direction, where it's clearly tenant oriented and tenant favored. You're essentially their social safety net for pretty much everything. So, but you get the idea. If you can survive in a state as lopsided as Massachusetts, you can thrive anywhere. And a great way to do that is to cover your butt liability-wise. So as Trod mentioned in the comments, and by the way, if you guys are popping in or if you're watching this on a replay, take a second, drop a question in the comment. I'll get to it later on a replay too. If you leave it now, we'll catch you later. And then while you're here watching, if you're coming in and out, click the like button and share and make sure you subscribe and share our channel. It'll help our channel grow to reach out to more people just like yourselves out there who want to learn more about the world of real estate. But, want to know more about it, how it really works. And there's a lot of people out there that are selling courses and all this other stuff that kind of give you the glossy details and stuff, and they don't get into the real estate. And so we kind of want to share a lot of that kind of stuff with you. We've had a very long, I say 13 years of doing this, but it feels like 35 because it's been a very, very long road when you don't know what you're doing. So we want to share our experience to help you avoid some of our mistakes. So one of the things I also want to tell you guys, when it comes to space heaters, and I put a link somehow, I don't know how it works with this live feed, but I put a link in the description for the live feed where there was that huge one that was in the state of New York where a ton of people died because somebody improperly used a space heater. It's not that it malfunctioned. I don't really remember. Maybe it's in the article what the deal was, but it was an end user issue. These things, they can become a problem in a variety of ways. It's almost never that the machine itself was faulty and manufactured incorrectly. It was 100%, almost 100% the usage. And I've seen people try to claim, "Oh my gosh, it's the landlord's bad wiring," when it's an electrical aspect of it. And almost 100% of the time, it's not. If used properly, the wiring of the property, properly and property, I do this all the time, isn't going to be an issue. It's the misuse of something that causes the issue. I see Trod's got another comment. I think space heaters create electrical issues. Let's start popping breakers and stuff. Funny. So I don't know, maybe you got a little delay on the comments, but 100% right. So what I see all the time, and I mean all the time, guys, is first of all, almost none of our properties do we allow tenants to have access to their basement. So if you have a multifamily house, think of it like a first, second, third floor apartments, and then a common basement, a regular traditional kind of multifamily house. I'm not sure what you have in your area. But traditionally, over the years, mostly there would be laundry hookups in the basement. All the tenants would have access to the basement to use the laundry. The circuit breakers are down there. The water tanks, the hot water tanks, and the heating systems are usually down there. And that way, if there was an issue with the circuit breaker, the tenant could reset it. If the tenant wanted to go do laundry, the tenant would have access to the basement, hook up their machines, and do laundry. Sometimes the landlord would put them down there. We don't allow access to the basements in most of our properties, which means we don't allow circuit breaker access to in most of our properties either. That's this whole other story that some people found to be surprising. And I said, there's just too many reasons that a tenant should not have access to a circuit breaker. Inconvenience is not one of them that I care about. If a tenant trips the circuit breaker because they did something wrong, and those are life-saving devices. Those things trip when there's an issue, when probably there's a usage issue. 90% of the time, wiring doesn't change unless you alter it, right? So 90% of the time, if a circuit breaker trips, probably more than that, it's because somebody did something wrong usage-wise. And then they stop that. They go and they reset the circuit breaker. I've literally seen situations where people will pry or wedge the circuit breaker open so it won't kick off because they don't want to take themselves, the inconvenience of going downstairs to reset it. So we don't give them access to it for a variety of reasons. I don't want to get too off topic. We're talking about space heaters and the danger. And can you ever really trust a tenant with them? But this is the kind of stuff that they'll do. Space heaters, which draw a ton of power. Now remember, mostly in things in apartments that draw power are heating or cooling devices. So space heaters, curling irons and blow dryers, microwaves, toasters, and those kind of things. Air conditioners for cooling devices, those kind of things draw a ton of electricity. Space heaters used incorrectly, used on a 15 amp breaker and not a 20, used in combination with a bunch of other stuff on that same breaker. And my favorite, of course, used on a lamp extension cord that they bought from like the dollar store. So this is huge. This happens all the time. You're going to see somebody plugging in a freaking made in China. Sorry don't censor me, China, but it's a made in China brown extension cord that they bought at the cheapest place they could possibly buy it. And they, put it in their most valuable room in their house, their kids' room. And they ran it to their space heater and they plugged their space heater into it. And they put the space heater next to some freaking drapes or something. I mean, I've seen people dry clothes on space heaters, guys. I'm not even kidding. This stuff happens. And this will 100% become, all of a sudden, they'll say, oh my gosh, it was a wiring issue. The landlord's at fault. Or they'll at least investigate and the landlord's going to be on the hook. The insurance company's going to deny claims. I mean, you have to prove that it wasn't, the landlord's problem. But I've seen people melt extension cords into the wall sockets. I've seen extension cords get smushed as they ran under like a bed, and they're the foot of the bed, kinked it, or it's cut into it as it ran under a foot of the bed or behind it. I've seen all that kind of stuff where the wire became frayed, pets chew on it. I have a bunny rabbit, she chews on stuff. So, I mean, these are kind of things that literally will happen in a household and cause an outage, cause a spark, cause a malfunction, and potentially cause a fire. And that's the kind of thing that you saw happen in New York. This happens very commonly in our area. As the temperature drops and heating season kicks in, that's what ends up starting to happen is you'll see house fire after house fire. And a lot of times the fire is not starting in the kitchen, not starting at a heating system or some other kind of mechanical spot. It's starting in a place that has no fire, no really mechanical anything. Starting in a bedroom, and that's often what's happening. Is aside from it being smoking, which clearly isn't the landlord's thing, or aside from it being incense or a candle or something like that, which again not a landlord thing, but instead you can count on it as heating system starts. You get your first real good cold night of the year. People kick on their space heaters. And then you start seeing and reading about fires happening. And then you don't always know the cause. The cause is a fire is under investigation, yada, yada. And you don't ever hear the follow-up. But half the time, it's a heating-related issue from supplemental heating. I'm going to wrap this up in a little bit, but I want to tell you, why are they using supplemental heating, right? This is a big thing. And so if people, as you're watching this on replay, might jump into the comments and might say this. So I'm going to say it now. They may say, well, listen, they shouldn't need to use space heaters. You're a slumlord. That's always my favorite. We love the videos. By the way, if you haven't seen some of our videos or shorts on all of our different platforms, please check them out. They're a lot of fun for us to shoot. And we know they're a lot of fun for you to see the people get triggered, especially the green-haired weirdos out there. But man, I'm going to say, they're going to say, why should they have to use space heaters? Why don't you fix their heat? Why don't you turn your heat up for them? Why don't you, do this and do that? Again, trying to try to justify a way where it's someone else's responsibility that these folks caused the fire. And what they're going to end up doing is not understanding, and I kind of brought this up earlier, not understanding why they needed a space heater. So one thing I've heard a lot, and again, I've had 500 rental units at one point. Matt and I together on this channel have had 500 rental units. We've had thousands of tenants between us in our years. We've got a lot of experience doing this stuff. And I'm telling you, I always say we've seen it all, and then more stuff happens. But what we've seen is people will literally be standing in a room right next to the thermostat. And after having called us and saying, hey, we're all freezing, there's no heat, my kids are all getting sick, you need to get out here right away and take care of us. And as we started learning our process, we would get out there, right? We got there right away, and we get there, we have a few different tools we would use. We use like the thermal, like little laser gun, take a temperature of a surface. But you'd go right to the thermostat in the living room, and it's sampling the air temperature in this most central, largest room of the house, the hardest to satisfy room of the house, and it's 72 degrees. It says right on the thing, and we take some temperature readings or however you we've measured it over the years, and yeah, it's not cold at all. I mean, it's 72. It's not cold. I don't know what cold is to you and to somebody else, right? But it's 72. And if our expectations are, if it's heat's included, or we have to provide facilities that'll heat it at least from 68 in the day to 78 during the day, 72 is definitely meeting with no problem what any reasonable person would consider as keeping their apartment from being cold. So, and so they would say, listen, we need a space heater in our apartment because it's too cold. You won't turn the heat on. Insufficient heat. And these are all going to be the kind of things because they don't understand. I mean, I guarantee every time when I do this, every time we would do this, we'd find it 72 in there, but it doesn't feel 72. We're all feeling cold. We're freezing. My kids are all getting sick. Not one of them is wearing anything on their feet, barefoot. They're wearing shorts, almost definitely, or they're wearing like a tank top. If you're literally trying to tell somebody you're freezing, you're cold, you're getting sick because you've been cold for 10 minutes, cold, right? Wouldn't you in your home put something warmer on? Wouldn't that be like the most logical, basic thing? But these kind of things don't always play, and that will be the first step in them and people pointing a finger back at you when they've done something wrong. They're going to find a way to tell you it was you that caused it. The house never should have burned down. Yes, it was my space heater that caused the fire, but it's not my fault. I needed to use a space heater because the landlord, it's all them. It's their fault. I see a comment from Josh. Got my second wholesale deal locked up. This place might be able to at this pace might be able to buy a rental yet. Well, keep learning with us. So when you start having that cash all stacked up and you're ready to buy that rental, you're going to be ahead of the game and learning, what to do with it, how to deal with the stuff that comes up. So I tell people this a lot. You focus so much on how do you get that first property? How do you find deals? How do you analyze deals? How do you get the financing? How do you acquire it? And then you're like, crap, I have it, and now I have tenants, and oh my God, what do I do? So I always want to make sure people know, spend a little bit of time hanging out with me on my live so we can help you learn this stuff, because pretty soon, you're going to own that rental, and it's your house that gets burned down by somebody that's reckless with a space heater, and then you get blamed for it. I don't want to see that happen. They literally tried pulling that stuff with the New York property owner who had, there was a ton of people that died because somebody misused a space heater and it caused a fire. And bottom line is they're always going to find, no matter how trivial, they'll find thing after thing, like I was just describing, to point the finger at somebody else. Very rare that people take responsibility for this kind of stuff. Yes, and Trod says, maybe I'll have to try wholesaling. Yes, definitely. And never a bad thing to learn all about the different aspects of so many different paths in the world of real estate. But yeah, so once again, you can prevent some liability. You can prevent some of this stuff when you don't allow them, period, in your lease. It's right there. They signed a contract. I make people initial a bunch of different spots on their lease. So as we're reviewing it, because I've had people turn around even after all of that, right? They turn around and said, "Well, I didn't know that. You didn't tell me about that. I didn't see that in my lease." And I'm like, "Are you always in the habit of signing contracts you don't read? Whatever." But the bottom line is they're sitting there denying it. So now, we have every page or every, there's certain areas of the contract where they're initialing. So, we covered this, we covered that. They initialed the spot right next to the word space heaters, even, right? You can do it however you want. And it makes it that much harder later to turn around and deny that you had any knowledge that you weren't supposed to have this thing. And then when you do visit a property and you see something that's, that's against your rules, maybe it's a dog, maybe it's a space heater, maybe it's a pool in the backyard, whatever it might be that you don't want to allow on your property. You should document that. And that's where having good rent management software kind of comes in. And there's some link in our bio. There's going to be some information that you can find with us where we can help you track down and learn about a property management software that's very, very affordable, especially for newbies. But I'm going to tell you seriously, document this stuff. You can do it in a few different ways. It doesn't have to be rocket science. You can keep a journal. You want to be low tech. I got a business partner that I've worked with who's never owned a computer. He's old, but he's never owned a computer. He does everything on pen and paper. And you could create a journal, a log, call it whatever you want, a diary. I don't know. Call it a journal so you feel more manly about it. Whatever you got to do, right? But write this stuff down. Property visit, 123 Fake Street. Fixed leaky sink. Notice, tenant had a space heater in the kitchen. And sent them notice that it's not allowed, or spoke to tenant, told them it's a lease violation. Whatever you do, but if you see that, or if it's reasonable to believe that space heater was in that kitchen, and you visited the property 2 or 3 times, and you didn't say anything or take any action about it, then you've now allowed it. That's the way. It's so ridiculous, but that's the kind of thing that they're going to try to throw out there at you. So I just wanted to give you that one as an idea. Document this stuff, send them a piece of paper about it, or put a note in that you discussed it, that the rules, the operating procedure of your properties, that kind of thing, so it's noted somewhere as a business record. That's the term, business record, that you're not okay with it and you're not accepting of it. And again, later, when this happens, when you have an irresponsible tenant or a tenant that just made a mistake, guys, mistakes happen, right? But they did something wrong and it caused damage, caused death, it could cause whatever, right? It caused some kind of damage. People will often try to put that on you. You now have a bunch of different layers to say, whoa, no, there's nothing. I didn't do anything wrong here. First of all, I told them they couldn't have it in the first place. Second of all, I spotted them with it. I told them they can't have it. Really redundant here. It's all documented. Here's the notice I sent out. Here's the date I sent it, all that information. And there is no issue with my wiring. It's not like there's all this wiring issue. It's always the landlord's wiring is probably old, these old houses. Look at this. When the place was inspected, that if you did make any adjustments or improvements to the property, you did it with a licensed electrician and installing things and doing upgrades. They pull permits. The city comes out and signs off on this stuff. You're doing it by the book. So it's not like hopefully not like you're doing too many crazy things. And bottom line is they'll find evidence of how this stuff went down. And 90% of the time, it's going to get pointed back to them plugging it into a dollar store extension cord or an outlet strip, faulty and bad tenant wiring, something on their end that they did, not the in-wall wiring, some kind of tampering with a fuse panel or circuit box, or something along the lines of them, having it too close next to, flammable surfaces. Curtains are a great example. Bedding, laundry. I've seen people have your laundry on carpeting. I've seen it. I've seen all sorts of silly things with it, and it's something you want to absolutely avoid. So, the best way to do this stuff, guys, to make sure this stuff doesn't happen, aside from setting expectations, is coaching. So it's one thing I talk about all the time. I guess I probably should have talked about this earlier in the video, but I talk about this all the time. When you see somebody, a tenant exhibiting a bad behavior, doesn't mean they're a bad tenant. Yes, there are bad tenants, and there are lots of bad tenants. But just because somebody does something that's a bad behavior or something that doesn't follow any rules doesn't make them a terrible human being and a bad tenant. When they don't respond to coaching and they continue that bad behavior, regardless of the expectations that have been set in your coaching and your advisement on it, then they're shifting into bad tenant territory. But coach them about this. Tell them why they can't have a space heater. Don't just say, you can't have this. Help them understand why you can't have this, and here's why. We don't allow unsafe things like space heaters, and here's one of the many reasons why. Coach them into it, get their buy-in on it and their understanding of it, and that will make it that much better for you, because then you're not in a situation where they're hiding it from you. The landlord's coming, hide all the stuff, put the dog in the other room, hide the space heater in a closet. That's the kind of stuff tenants will do, right? So, just like look, we drive down the highway, we see a cruiser parked up ahead. We check, make sure our seats belt buckled. We look at a speedometer, right? I mean, oh my gosh, we got to make sure we're 100% in compliance so that I get my car inspected, and my insurance paid up. That's the kind of thing, right? You like, did I do anything wrong? Am I doing something wrong? Okay, I'm good. So it's going to be the same kind of thing. Some tenants don't effing care, and they'll just do whatever the heck they want, and those are usually the bad ones. But most tenants that know law enforcement or somebody in charge is coming by, they're going to take a second and they're going to make sure that their apartment is in as much compliance as they can reasonably bring it into, and they know deep down that that's one of the things that you don't allow. So coach them into it, get their buy-in on it. Maybe they won't participate in doing it that way to begin with. Help them understand that their windows are drafty, probably because they're not using them properly. I had a 60-year-old woman tell me she didn't know how windows work, because she had them literally ajar. She was on a ground floor of it in a city apartment. Anybody, and I showed her with one finger, you could open the window. Anybody could walk right up to the side of her house, open the window with one finger, and hop right into her apartment and rob her in the middle of the night. You'd be in the house in 30 seconds because the windows, not only were they not locked, they weren't fully even shut. And so I helped her understand how that works, made sure the windows were locked. And now, she has no drafty windows, but she was blaming us for her really high heating bill of $400 a month because of our drafty windows. And I said, our windows are nice and pretty new. Like, I remember we put these in just a few years ago. As far as windows goes, that's freaking new, right? And I'm like, they're not drafty. Like, what are you talking about? Well, of course, I knew what she was talking about. I've done this a lot. I see this a lot. It's very common. Go over, I take a look at it, put my hand next to it with it. Those are the windows that are drafty. That's why somebody's going to use a space heater, because they had to. They were freezing otherwise. My landlord doesn't fix things. I had to do this. And yeah, it caused a fire, but it's only caused because I had to take these extreme measures because my landlord's a slumlord. That's the kind of spiel you're going to get hit with when this kind of thing happens. When a space heater goes, it causes a fire because somebody made a mistake. She put the space heater near the drafty window with the curtains on it, or in this case, the drafty window that's got the blanket, closed up in it in the upper sash, and that blanket caught fire because of the space heater. But of course, she had to do that because you're the bad landlord. So these are the kind of things people will do later. Don't let that happen to you. If you want to learn more about this stuff, guys, we have a huge YouTube channel for you to check out. I would love it if you would take a second and hit the subscribe button, drop likes as you watch this, and then, of course, throw some comments in there as well. We'd love to see activity on our channel and watch our channel grow. We're really, really hoping you'll be able to share our channel with somebody that you think could benefit from knowing the real inside track in the world of real estate. So thanks so much. If you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. And then stand by as you know, we're going to be doing this stuff a lot more often. So make sure your alerts are turned on for us, because we do have some videos coming up that we're going to release here on YouTube. I don't want you to miss them. Thanks everybody for being part of this broadcast. I really appreciate that. And if anybody that watches on replay has a comment or a question, don't forget, drop that comment or question, and we'll get back to you on it. Thanks. Take care.